Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with Alyx King on Thursday, September the 3rd, 2020. It's 4 p.m. New York time, and wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And while Dan Mangana is not with us yet today, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to make it or not. It almost doesn't matter because Alyx brought a friend. He's a cool friend too, because he's a coach on top of being a friend. And if you're going to have a friend, you might as well have the friend be a coach. That's what I say.
Big facts.
Right?
Big facts.
You know? So Naphtali Anderson is a mindset coach I'm going to let him tell most of the story, but he was telling me that one of the things he focuses on is helping people to find their authentic self. And Naphtali, first of all, welcome to the program. Glad to have you here.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Love to be
Welcome.
here. Thank you.
And we got to start off with this authentic self because that's a term that some people use, some people avoid, some people are saying, what the heck? So let's talk about what an authentic self really is.
Yeah. So to me, the basics of being authentic, your authentic self is when you're in alignment. Okay. So we all know growing up, we make lots of decisions because we want to please our mom, please our dad, please our friend, whatever it may be. And most of the time, a lot of times, there's not necessarily an alignment. We do it because we want to make them happy, not really because we feel good about it. And we start to shape our personality based on trying to satisfy the people around us.
We get good at it too.
Yeah, we get really good at it. But the one person that we forget to satisfy is ourselves.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
You know I forgot something.
Right. And it's funny. It's like we laugh, right? Because it sounds so funny. But how many times have we sat there and said, like, okay, I'm going to do this for myself. I'm going to make 20 minutes just to sit down for myself because I need some time to read a book, meditate, I don't know, whatever. But then we don't do it because Jane called and we have to be there for Jane, right? So I always talk about my clients, and sometimes when I do master classes and stuff, when you make a promise or someone makes a promise to you and they fall short on the promise, it's like, how do you feel?
How do I feel?
Yeah.
But not real good, that's for sure.
Exactly. You feel like crap. You feel like I'm not valuable. You feel like I'm not worthy. But yet we do that to ourselves all the time.
Self-sabotage.
Right? We self-sabotage. So we don't fall in line with what our values are, what we believe in, what we're aligned with. And so we're constantly showing our inner selves that, hey, you're not that important. You're not really valuable, because when somebody else does it to us, like we're mad, but we explain it away when we do it and say, no, I'm busy. It's okay. But it's really devaluing ourselves. So connecting with your authentic self is to actually pay value to yourself. Is to be able to say, it's like, okay, you know what? I don't agree with that. Okay. Or I need this time for me. So you can protect your own self-value, and then you'll feel more in alignment. And what's awesome about that is that when you bring that into, say, your career or something else like that, then you connect with your internal power and you can actually produce way more. When people are in line with their heart and they're doing something that connects with their purpose, that has internal meaning for them, whatever that looks like their ability to do things, to figure out problems, to work at an accelerated level, it just shoots through the roof, But it only comes when you're being authentic to yourself.
So is it fair to say that you're using the words authentic self in the same way that somebody else might say higher power or inner being or something along that line?
Yeah. I think that's honestly what it is. We were all born with a spirit. There's a spirit inside of all of us. And that spirit is the truth of who we are. But again, we choose to ignore it because we try to please the world around us.
Well, actually, that's not the only reason. I mean, there are other reasons for ignoring too. Let's be honest. I mean, I think I found almost all of them actually through personal experience. I'm very good at it. One of my favorites is actually to make some special time for myself and then go off and look at something I don't like.
Yeah.
I mean, and then I say, wait a minute, what are you doing, Walt?
What are you doing? It's funny you mentioned that because sometimes the the scariest place for people to be is by themselves.
Mm.
To actually spend time to listen to them, their inner thoughts and things
Well,
like
sometimes
that.
it's dangerous. Let's be perfectly
It's
blunt.
it can be it can definitely be dangerous. But that's if you're choosing to realize too that you're not necessarily your thoughts, right? You're the spirit that's in there that says to yourself, what was that? Like,
Right.
what did I just think? Because if you were the thought, who's the one asking the question? You know what I mean?
That's one of my favorite things to say. I can't ever seem to get away from myself.
Every time I turn around, there I go.
I know, it's right there.
There
I
I
mean,
go.
I look in the mirror and the face doesn't change. Oh my
It
God.
doesn't change.
So you got to
How
get
did
like
you get
me.
here?
Mine does change.
Yours changes all the time. Yes. The hair color too.
Yep.
I just try to grow more hair every once in a while, but it doesn't even go that far. But
Who is that guy anyway?
yeah.
Yeah, Walt's probably the only person I know that didn't grow a quarantine beard.
This is true. I
He's
started
being
to grow it
authentic.
and nobody noticed it because it was all white, so it didn't make any difference. So I said, screw it, just shave it off.
But wouldn't it reflect like everything like a prism? No,
Not really, no.
when you wouldn't have a rainbow beard.
There were days when I had like 4 or 5 day growth and you didn't notice.
Wow.
I'm serious. I'm quite serious.
So he did have a COVID beard.
I
He
really
just didn't
did, yeah.
know.
But I
Oh
didn't like
man.
it, so I just shaved it off,
Well, apparently it wouldn't matter. So
Well, we're doing this video where we do this thing, I mean, we are making a podcast, but we record
True.
on Zoom, so
very true.
you had your chance.
Well, from now on, I'll zoom in. I'll be like,
Oh, okay,
Yes.
okay.
all right, no
Well, I did
quarantine
shave
beard.
today.
Check.
No
Just-
quarantine beard.
So anyway, getting back
man.
to the less silly stuff.
Yeah.
No such thing on Thursdays.
Thursdays can be crazy. I have to just kind of warn you, Naphtali. I mean,
Yeah.
especially when Dan is here, there are times when I can't get a word in edgewise, and those two just go at it, and you never know where the topic is
What's it
going
gonna
to go.
go?
By the end of
Yeah.
the show, you're asking, what was the topic?
What do we name this today?
Yeah, exactly.
So, no guarantees about the show is all I'm saying, okay?
Yeah. No, that's
It's just-
fine with me.
Now, one of the other things you talked about with me before the show was influencing.
Yes.
And you were inferring, actually, you were pretty directly stating that it comes directly from your own mindset, from your own internal state. So talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So I found that I connect with people well, but it's because when I'm speaking with people, I'm being authentic. I'm being real. Going back to that whole spirit, right, that we have inside. Whether you can see somebody, sometimes you can tell just when they're happy. You can feel when they're happy. You can feel when they're sad. You can feel when people make music and they put their heart into it. There's a big difference, and so when you're talking to somebody, it's not necessarily just the words. And there's definitely con artists out there have mastered tones and stuff like that to make it seem a certain way.
We can all think of a few, but that's another story.
Sure. but at the same time, for we'll say regular people,
regular people, I love
regular people, right?
I love that he didn't say normal.
I don't even know what that is.
Does anyone?
I never figured it out.
No.
So
They've been banned from this show, so.
So regular people, when we speak from a place that comes from your heart, that comes from that inner spirit, then people can feel that. People can feel that, okay, this person can be trusted because it touches them in a deeper place. It allows them to be vulnerable. It allows them to feel like there's something more there than just the words that are being said. And I think, again, it's a spiritual thing. Because there's some people that will sit there and talk to you all day and you're like, really not feeling this, feeling this person right here, and then there's a person that can talk to you for 5 minutes or less. And you're like, that's my guy. Like whatever they say, I'm in, whatever. It's the difference. The difference is, that where they come from, that heart, that spirit, that energy of where they come from. And so, but I think at the same time, us being authentic with ourselves gives us more power to speak to someone else authentically. Because if I'm not being authentic and I'm coming from a place of, usually when you're not authentic, there's fear, there's a lot of insecurities, there's a lot of that going on. And so when I'm speaking to you, in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, do I sound cool? Did I say that right? You know, are they going to trust me? And so you're going to feel all of that. And you're going to be like, yeah, I don't trust you because there's something going on and I don't know what it is, but you got something. And so dealing with that yourself first, you know, and having that self-awareness and everything. But then when you bring that into relationships, when you bring that to the workplace, you can come from a whole different place. And I think the last part I want to add on to that is, you know, speaking about the workplace, you deal with a lot of different personalities. Mm-hmm. And it's very easy for a lot of people to take things very personal.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so when you're in a place where you're accepting that true person, then is a very, 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 very little chance you're going to take anything personal. Okay. And you can actually see situations, read situations properly so that you know how to find the right solution, because it's not necessarily, again, what they're saying. And if you take things personal, you're going to end up being blinded by what's going on and by what's being said, that you don't even really know what the problem is. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Bob's the problem at that time, not the actual, what is Bob actually pissed about?
Right,
you know,
right.
And so that's something that I teach to a lot of people to help them deal with that so they can navigate their business life better.
Mm-hmm. And not just business life, I would think all their personal life and you know, everything else. I mean, it just
every aspect.
it covers
Dealing with
everything.
people.
Yeah.
Dealing with people, you know, no matter what situation it is, like you're saying, you know.
The whole idea of an authentic self can be, or an inner being, or however we want to label it, it can be a fascinating topic, a fascinating idea. It can also be a little bit scary because, especially, I know for myself early on when I was exploring this stuff, it was scary in that I was never really sure where it was.
Yeah.
It was always there, but
Right.
I had never really identified who my authentic self was.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, am I being true to myself? I don't know. Do you ever run into that with clients?
Yeah. I do. And a lot of that comes down to asking, like you're just asking yourself a question, right?
Mm-hmm.
But asking yourself a question and then looking at your emotions with it. Mm-hmm. I think when I talk about emotions, they're like the great revealer, you know, of what's going on inside. Mm-hmm. Okay, because you have your beliefs, you have your thoughts, you have your emotions. Okay, so your emotions are pretty much connected with your thoughts and your beliefs, right?
Oh, sure.
And so what you believe is going to affect how you feel. And if it doesn't line up, if you're not feeling like, okay, something is not okay, or you're not feeling that there's maybe a lot of fear included with it, but then asking them this question, okay, why am I feeling this fear? What is it telling me about this situation? Mm-hmm. You know, I avoided relationships for a long time because of pain dealing with my father. And the real thing was I was afraid of being hurt, you know? So, but I didn't realize that till I was like, okay, like, you know, I love people in general. And I, you know,
I like that too.
Yeah, you know, but at the same time, when it came to people getting close to me, even like my friends that were, you know, male and just my good friends, if they got too close, I would disappear for like weeks.
For weeks, wow.
And I wouldn't do it consciously. Yeah, I wouldn't do it consciously. It would be unconscious. But then I would notice after the fact. Mm-hmm. So I had to look at that.
You kind of make it happen and then realize later on that you made it happen.
Right. Yeah. I got really busy.
Yeah,
you know?
Oh my God, he was famous for that. Like the saying, "Hey, stranger," comes from me talking to him all the time.
Aha, okay. Now we have, people don't necessarily know this, but you guys have a long history. You've known each other for quite some time. So Alyx really does have the inside dope on him.
Yeah. Yep. Sure do.
That means, Naphtali, you can't hide anything. You're in trouble now.
Well, I mean, at this point, I'm pretty transparent anyway. So
for
better or for worse. Sometimes it's for worse. but I just tell like it is. I can't help it anymore. But
Yeah.
But I mean, Alex, how far back do you guys go?
Band camp.
it's elementary
Like,
school.
yeah, fifth, sixth
Elementary
grade.
school. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a long way back.
a long way. I don't even want to count the years, but yeah.
Yeah. It's like 10 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
But what was this about authentic self? Hold on a second.
Right. We didn't talk about telling the truth. We just
Oh,
Well, what if my authentic self is my inner child and she's still in school?
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
Loopholes.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, whatever floats your boat.
Whatever helps you sleep at night.
I mean, to me, it sounds like a great opportunity for some more coaching, but that's another
Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
Oh man.
What I want to ask you, since you do have that history, Alex, what's your earliest memory of Naphtali from the point of view of mindset? Because that's his thing now. He's a mindset coach. What's your earliest memory in that regard?
Probably the college years. When he started what you were in a fraternity. What fraternity was that?
Pi Kappa Alpha.
Yeah, that's when he started like coming around to like the whole. I mean, I was in my 20s too, so it was like The Secret had just come out, and everything was starting to, you know what I mean. So it was around that time.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Again, okay. I'm not going to say what year it was.
So,
well, if we take your compressed time frame, it must have been somewhere between.
It was 5 minutes ago. What do you mean?
Yeah. I just left.
Just left, yeah.
So, what was actually going on at that time was, again, I grew up with, a lot of insecurities, a lot of fears and all that stuff. But I was always a guy trying to please everybody else. Okay, I was that guy trying to make everybody happy. And, I was a sports guy, I was this, I was that. But in college, I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm the cool kid. I'm in the fraternity. I have all the friends, but it's like, this is just so empty. And I'm like, is this all that there is?
Yeah.
That's what it really came down to. And at that point I was like, all right, I gotta start digging more into life. That's when I started actually reading the Bible. I started there. I started studying just different successful people, like what made them different, what made them stand out, what made them do what they did. People from sports, from people, Martin Luther King, Abraham Lincoln, people in business, it didn't really matter. That's when I got a bit into like Wayne Dwyer, started reading some of his stuff. And so I ended up finding really the biggest difference is really their mindset, is really what they thought about, what they focused on, and, pretty much living a life where they didn't believe there was any type of limitations, because they all had challenges.
Sure.
Some of them came from extremely challenging backgrounds, bad situations, bad environments, no money, no nothing, no friends, no family, sickness, and everything else.
Yep.
But yet they changed their life and they changed the world. So it's like, what excuse do I have? What excuse does anybody have? And it's like, even, we talk about the Bible, even in the Bible, a lot of it is really talking about your mindset. It's really talking about your thinking. It's really talking about how you look at the world. It's really talking about dealing with what's going on inside first, and, a lot of people don't see that. But if you read like all the self-help books, I hate calling them self-help books, but self-help books, that's what
they're
call.
generally called. So you kind of stuck with
what
them.
they're called.
It is what it
is. So all those books, leadership books, other things like that, like they're all saying basically the same thing.
That's true.
They just say it in different ways. And even me being a coach and me saying what I'm saying on here or anywhere else, there's going to be millions of people that connect with me, and there's going to be billions of people that say this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. They're not going to connect with me, And I think that's a beautiful thing, to be honest with you.
Talk about that, because I think it's an
Yeah.
important point.
Oh, definitely. Like, a lot of people focus on competition. I used to focus on competition. I was a very competitive guy.
Mhm.
Because again, I was still trying to win everybody's approval. That was part of it. But
Sure. Hey,
but
I think I know that story real well, so
yeah.
nothing unusual there.
Yeah. So, but I always related to music. Okay. So when we hear somebody going platinum, right? We, in our mind, I immediately thought it was like, oh, everybody bought their album, like the world, like everybody did. And it's like 100,000 or something like that sales. I
I think
forgot.
500,000 for platinum and 100,000 for
500,000.
gold. Yeah, but yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's, you can find that in a state.
Yeah, right.
You know what I
True.
mean? And
It's
not
not
even
that
like
much.
the real big state. I was like, you can find that in a
We're talking
very,
about
very
Rhode Island. I mean,
I was going to say Rhode Island.
exactly. So you, and this is sold all over the world. You know what I
Right.
mean? So you have Rhode Island buying their album,
Right.
and that's like, oh, top album, and
yeah.
like Rhode Island bought it in the whole world. Woo! It's like, so it's like, what competition am I really fighting against? It's like,
You're not very good for people's egos. You realize that, right?
I think that's the point.
it's part of the point. It's part of the point. It's we're fighting over Rhode Island, not realizing that you have a whole country and then you have a whole world at your fingertips, especially now. Yeah. You know, you're not supposed to resonate with everybody. If you're trying to, then you're definitely not being authentic, because you only have one voice. And if you're staying true to yourself, not everybody's going to like you. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. You know, there's going to be people that absolutely love you because you're speaking their language, and they need you to speak their language, because that's the only way that they're going to change, make improvements to their life, so they can affect other people that you will never reach, or I will never reach. And that's where the beauty comes in, you know, because if I reach 1 million, those 1 million are going to reach other people that I will never be able to reach. But at the same time, that 10 million, 100 million at that point will change the world to make it a better place, change lives, make a difference, you know? So I don't have to battle Bob next door or whoever else. You know, I just need to be real to myself, because if I'm real, I'll connect with the right people.
You know, when you were talking about that, I was kind of thinking about what it is like when you are the people pleaser, because you described, you have that background. I'm very much the same kind of thing. I've never pictured Alyx that way, but she may surprise me, so we'll find out. But
not once, not never.
I never. Oh, well, okay. But my point is, when you're that kind of a people pleaser, you literally have to respond differently to every single person that you meet, because they're all coming from very different perspectives, and we like to group them, right? You know, if it's political, we say they're right wing or left wing. If it's economic, we say they're rich or they're poor. You know, there's lots of little categories that we set up, but ultimately we have to adopt all those mindsets and say, well, I'm just like that one, and start playing like that one. And if you do that long enough, it's schizophrenic. Yeah, you actually start to your integrity as a human being starts to fall apart. Not integrity in terms of, well, yes, it does both ways. Actually, it's the integrity in terms of how other people see you, but it's also the integrity about how you see yourself. Right. It just kind of dissolves after a while. Yeah, and exactly. When I talk about depression, there's depression.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely, just like one note on the whole depression topic is, like, I definitely feel like a big part of that is being 100% just not in alignment with what's going on inside. And I feel like there's just an inner battle where that spirit wants to express itself, but you have it so buried in there that it's just pain inside. It's just turmoil. But and to your point, where when you're people pleasing, like, I had to get to the point where I honestly got to the point where I was like, I have no clue who I am. Like, I don't know what I like. I don't know what I don't like. I don't know what's up. I don't know what's down. Okay. So I'm like, I have to figure this thing out, you know, because I got to figure out what's going on in here before I get to the point where I am completely depressed. I did see a doctor actually when I was in college, and, you know, they did tests, and it's like, oh, you may be, you know, depressed and stuff, but I was like, yeah, I'm not feeling labels. So we'll talk later. I just never went back, you know, but
so, I like that.
Much later.
Yeah. I lost my way to the office. So,
Yeah, that's it.
so, but you do lose that. You lose that identity, you know, and then it came down to, it's like, okay, when I would draw, you know, Alex and I used to draw like all the time. You know, there were times I would get lost in time. Okay, so I was like, all right, that's something that obviously connects with me somehow, right?
Yeah.
I know that, you know, again, Alex will tell you, I'm always the guy that was being positive for everybody else. I was always the
Facts.
guy that always helping. I was always in air. I was always that guy. And part of that was the people pleasing. Part of that was I was in so much pain as I didn't want anybody else to feel like I was feeling. So
Oh.
my way of fixing that was, I'm going to be your best friend when you need me, you know, and I'm going to help you get through this. And I would help them, even though if, you know, you ask me, hey, what's wrong? Oh, no, I'm good. Life's perfect. Everything's awesome. You know? But at the same time, that's one thing I knew that was important to me. And that's part of the reason, big reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now, you know, and being a people pleaser and going through what I went through and dealing with how trying to help people the way I did, it gives me a benefit now because I learned how to deal with so many different circles that I understand their languages.
Sure.
But at the same time, I understand the common points between all of them, you know? So it gave me a better understanding of what really drives people, what moves people, you know, what's truly important to people. And also being that guy that was listening to everybody's problems and trying to help them, it taught me how to be a better listener, how to read between the lines, how to pay attention to tones, how to pay attention to body language, how to pay attention to all that to hear what they weren't saying, you know? And so like that is something that means the world to me, to help somebody get through something, to get them to that next level, to help them break a barrier. Like that's what that drives me, that pushes me, you know, more than anything else. That's why I know I had to come down and take this path that I'm on now, doing the coaching. So
you remind me a bit of my wife Louise.
Yeah.
She is a former psychotherapist,
nice.
and before she became a therapist, she was diagnosed with anorexia. What's the phrase? Anorexia
Anorexia.
nervosa.
Anorexia.
I was
Okay.
reversing all the vowels and it didn't work. Anorexia, no, that's not it. But no, she was dealing with a pretty serious eating condition and ultimately overcame it.
Yeah.
But in the course of overcoming it, she was also asking herself questions, trying to understand her family, trying to understand what happened with her as she was growing up. Not so much necessarily that she was a people pleaser, but her own stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And one of the things that she told me early on in our relationship, we've been together 22 years now.
Nice.
We met relatively later in life. We were both in our 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And when we met, we had both done quite a bit of work on ourselves.
Yeah.
As she was describing to me work she had done on herself, one of the things that she pointed out was the reason why therapists become therapists. And I kind of get a sense it may apply to you too. This is what I was tying in earlier on. That she became a therapist and other people become therapists because they want to figure out what's wrong with themselves. And then they want to take that and help other people the same way.
Right.
And
Right.
you almost had it kind of in reverse. You were helping people first, and then you wanted
Yeah.
to find out what was going on with you. But it was basically the same idea.
Yeah. I think it's a big part of it. And I think because I relate to my own struggles, especially now, that when I help people, I'm not coming from a place of I'm just a smart one that has it all figured out. I'm just the guy that has always just been perfect, and I'm here to fix you. You know, I'm coming from a place where it's like, I know where you're at. I get what's going on in there. I understand how much noise is in there. You know, I understand you want to make people happy. I understand that you want to do this big thing, but there's something invisible wall just blocking you, and it's frustrating you. You know, I can relate to all that. That's why I can connect and speak to all that. You know, and I think that's what makes it more powerful. But yeah, I'm still learning. I have probably 100, 200 something books on my audiobook. I have 2 bookshelves right here I'm always learning. I'm always trying to get better. I'm always trying to figure out how can I make this easier for me, for other people. Like, you know, is there something that I'm missing? Is there something that could help people more? Is there something that can help me more? Am I practicing what I'm preaching? You know,
Mm.
um, what are my habits looking like today? It's like, oh, I fell off this week from doing whatever. It's like I got to get back on track. You know, because I also don't want to be the guy that's telling somebody else, oh, you need to do this, you need to do this, and then I'm oversleeping 3-4 hours, in my bed. And I'm saying, hey, what's your morning routine?
Yeah, right. What was my morning routine? No,
Right. Hit snooze, snooze, snooze. Then just cancel it.
Just cancel it, right?
Right.
Actually, no, I've gotten to the point where I can't cancel my routine. If I do, I have a really bad day. So I have built it up to that point. But you're right, especially
That's
early
awesome.
on. It's easy to hit that snooze button or whatever the equivalent is. Yeah, no doubt about that. Something else I wanted to bring up too. I have a note to bring up the COVID stuff, and I'll bring that up at some point because you mentioned earlier how you, like everybody else, you're dealing with that. So I figured that makes an interesting topic point. But I want to go back to what we talked about a moment ago, where we talked about trust. Because I made reference to the fact that the stream on Tuesday had been channeling source energy, saying trust, total trust is a really, really important thing in terms of making that interconnection or being the authentic self, as you describe it.
Right.
So let's talk about trust a little bit, because that trust thing can be really tough. You talked for a moment ago about those barriers that pop up.
Yeah.
And one of the big points that the stream made was, well, those barriers pop up every single time we're focusing on stuff we don't like. We're putting the barriers up.
Yeah.
And the way to get around that is by trusting. And more than trusting, it's accepting and appreciating the stuff that led us to put the barriers up.
Right.
Like, wow, there's a lot to swallow. So talk about that from your perspective. How do you look at that whole picture?
Yeah. So as far as the barriers, right? I actually just recorded a training. I'm going to actually re-record it again, but it talks about essentially how to break down those barriers when you're trying to move forward on something, take action on something, but you just feel like there's something stopping you there. And we look at, I talked about beliefs and thoughts and the emotions. And so taking that a step further, right? You have your emotions and you have your actions and you have your results. Okay. Beliefs are so strong and they're so smart, because
that's a smart ass. That's another
they if very basic example, which you guys have probably heard of before, right? If you're walking on the floor on a plank, right, that's 2 feet wide, and I was like, all right, well, walk across this plank. You'd be like, all right, and you would walk across it just fine, right? And then we put that plank 100 feet up in the air and say, well, walk that plank.
Not happening.
Right. So your belief turns into, I'm gonna fall, something bad's gonna happen, I can't do this, right? So that strong stride that you took on the floor, feeling good, you don't have that stride anymore. All of a sudden you're wobbly, your legs are shaky. So your belief created a thought of fear, right? Your emotions made your body tense. Okay, you no longer have balance. Your action is that you shake so that you get that result, so you can fall. So that result goes back to your belief and says, see, told you, Walt, you're gonna fall.
It's almost like I forgot how to walk.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it sounds like when you're describing that. It sounds like I forgot how to walk.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happens. Because your belief wants so much to prove itself, so it can strengthen itself. Okay. It changes your whole physiology. Okay. But those same things, right, that you ask yourself in that fear of what if I fall? What if I lose my balance? What if? We use those same questions, okay, and say, well, what if I do this successfully? What if I have perfect balance? I just walked on the floor with perfect balance. What if, you use the what if questions to start reshaping that belief? Okay, so that's how you break down some of that fear barrier. Okay, but those questions and paying attention to that emotion, when you ask yourself too, why am I even feeling this fear? Okay, and that works a lot, honestly, with relationships and things, other things besides like near-death situations, like we're talking about. So when you pay attention,
they never call them near-life situations. Why is that?
I don't know.
Sorry,
you knew on the other
going
side.
on all these tangents today. I have these days every once in a while.
Sorry.
I think once you get to the other side, you do call it a near life experience.
Yes,
That's true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you feel in that emotion and you start questioning from there, okay, then you can see what your belief is, and then you can start questioning what that belief is, and does it hold true? And if you can start questioning that belief, you start crumbling that down like a cookie, like we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And so those barriers start to get thinner. You know, I feel like that wall is just made up of multiple barriers of fear and self-doubt. And when we start taking away some of those layers, then we can strengthen our thoughts, to strengthen our emotions, have a positive emotion, to start pushing through the last bit of that barrier. Okay. So that was a training that I just recorded the other day that I'm actually redoing. But
and that's actually a description of trust that you're giving there. That's what trust is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say, and that's really, in that aspect, is really trusting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's really trusting yourself. Because that's why we don't usually trust ourselves. We just tie into the self-doubt. We tie into the fears and say, okay, well, I'm not good enough. I never did this before, blah, blah, yada, yada, yada. But we got to start questioning that. You know, if we ask the right questions, then we can start breaking that down and say, you know what, I can do this. There is a great chance that I could be successful on this, but I have to take the action to get the new result. And once I get the new result, then my belief really starts to change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then you start this cycle that becomes more powerful and you start doing well. You know, it's just like learning anything new.
Yep.
So,
well, if you're familiar with Wayne Dyer, which you apparently are,
yeah.
and Alex mentioned The Secret, and I talked earlier about Abraham Hicks, so we're in woo-woo land at this point. You're in woo-woo land. Welcome, first of all.
I mean, change my background.
Yeah. So, you know, from that woo-woo perspective, if you will, Abraham talks about it a lot, that if you want to move barriers out of the way, if you want to get past them, you have to basically change that internal dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And what they recommend is simplicity itself. You change it. Yes, you start with the dialogue about the things that you don't like and don't want, but you turn them quickly to the things that you do want instead.
Yeah.
You pivot, as they call it. They call it the pivoting process.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm curious, does that pivoting process play a role in what you're teaching?
Yeah, it definitely does. But I think the core of it is really people accepting the thought that they are not their thoughts.
Well, the acceptance comes first.
Exactly. Because if they continue to believe that they are their thoughts, then they will never question it. Because it's just going to be like, if it's in my head, if I thought it, then it must be true. You know? And so that's what happens with a lot of people. And so if they can separate themselves a bit from all the noise that's going on in there and say, this is not necessarily me, you know, this is something that's happening inside of me, but this is not me. So I can pick and choose which thoughts I'll trust that one, delete that. This one's good. I like that, you know, and then you start building, you know, that new person, if you will. Then you start building that new mindset. But it has to be by choice. You have to come to the point you realize that not all these thoughts I have to actually pay attention to. You know, they're not all valid.
And for me, part of that process, the thought process part was actually easy for me to adopt. The part that was new and revolutionary for me was the idea that not only could I select my thoughts, I could select my feelings.
Yeah.
That was new. I thought that my feelings happened to me all the time. I had a whole life history that reinforced for me that feelings happened to me. I didn't choose to feel that way. That happened because so-and-so did this and that happened over there.
Right. And I think that all plays, like, again, in the bigger spectrum of things, because again, when you're choosing your thoughts, right, then you're choosing your emotions. Because when I think the thought that Walt did this to me, my emotions are going to follow with usually frustration, anger, or whatever else, and victimhood, right? Versus, okay, Walt did this. How do I choose to look at that situation? You know, at that point, now I remain in control. And that's something, you know, again, we talk about in business, talk about relationships, right? When anybody does anything, you have a choice how you want to respond. Okay. You can react, but you have a choice to respond, you know, and say, what does this mean to me? And also too, how do I want this to end? What result in the bigger picture how do I want this to turn out? Okay, so me being angry right now, is that going to help the situation and get it to where I want it to be, selfishly, you know, or me staying calm, talking to you through your frustration or whatever else, going to get me to an end goal that I'm happy with, you know. But like you said, it's choosing your thoughts about the situation, choosing your emotion, and then asking yourself, where do you want it to go? Where do you want the situation to end up?
And when you can learn, or I found for myself, when I learned, first of all, that I actually could pick my feelings, which was a shock.
Yeah.
And then not only could I do that, but when I wanted to, I could actively move my emotional set point to a different place.
Yeah.
In a matter of a minute. It was like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. How did I do that?
I actually learned how to do that from, I believe it was the movie Half Baked.
Okay.
And it was a scene where this guy was quitting his job, and he just realized like he doesn't need this job anymore. So he's like, you're cool, not you, I'm out. That's how I learned it.
It sounds just like you too, I have to say.
Right?
You learned
that's
that
why
one.
I resonated.
Really, really
that's
well.
why.
Yeah,
that's why
exactly.
I resonated so much.
I don't have to do this. I don't have to be here.
Right. Right. And that's and it's funny too, right? When you say Alex, you say you don't have to. My mom would say that to us all the time. And I would say, oh, I have to do. It's like, you don't have to do anything. You know, I still was supposed to listen to her, but I didn't have to, right?
Right.
She was really just pinpointing why are you saying have to? Why are you saying have to? And you're right. We don't have to feel a certain way about any situation. Sometimes it's tough because we have the belief of what it's supposed to mean. We had the belief of how we're supposed to react. We had the belief of what others are going to think. Sometimes when we don't react a certain way, you know, when my sister passed away, and it took me a while to digest everything. And 2 weeks later, my grandfather passed away, same day of the week.
Oh boy.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was still at a place where I was still trying to figure out my emotions and stuff. But I remember someone said to me, because I wasn't sitting there bawling, crying, that it's like, look, you have to feel. It's like, what are you doing? You're just bearing everything up. And it's like, and at first I started questions like, well, am I supposed to be, or should I? But it's like, I have to react the way that fits me. You know, does that mean I care less? It doesn't mean that.
No.
Right.
I just have to react that the way that's authentic to me. There's certain things I believe about life. There's certain things I believe about the spirit. There's certain things I believe about being here on earth. So it means something different to me, that my perspective, what's going on and what happened may be different than what somebody else believes. So my reaction to it is going to be different. And what I feel I need to do with that energy may be different, you know? But again, a lot of it is just taking on other people's beliefs of what is supposed to happen, you know?
That was another thing that happened with me. Both my parents have passed. My dad passed about 10 years before my mom did, 11 years before she did. And they were about 11 years apart, so that worked out fairly well, I guess. But when my dad passed, I found that I had done all my grieving before he died.
Yeah.
Which was a bit of a shock, because that's not the way it's supposed to happen. I mean, the official rule book says you're supposed to grieve after the person passes.
Yeah. Looking at page 10.
Page 10, right. Subsection 35.
Right.
It says so. It's in black and white. I can see it.
Yeah, step number 6. What are you talking about?
Right.
But I didn't react that way. I did all my grief, and I really did grieve leading up to his death. I mean, it was my wife was there for me, and it was great. And then afterward, it was like, it was a bit of a shock. because I didn't fit the rule book. And to an even greater extent with my mom, I'd actually grieved my mom long before she passed. I was in a great shape by the time she passed. It's like it did. And this sounds strange to say it didn't affect me.
Right.
Very
It
true.
really did. Years passed.
Mm-hmm.
I'd gone through it all, but when it came, it was like, yeah, okay, well, I was kind of expecting that.
Right. Yeah.
Which violates all the rules.
Yeah. Right.
Which just goes to prove, you can take the rules and put them where,
Yeah. From where you got them. We'll just
It just goes to prove, I mean, you do have to be true to your way of feeling.
Right.
Your way of thinking, but also your way of feeling. I actually think the feeling part, just because I had that experience with, being so shocked about being able to control my own feeling and select my own feeling. I think the feeling part is almost more important. I mean, everything originates with thoughts. I think we can agree on that. But without having the true alignment with what I'm really feeling inside,
right,
the thoughts aren't really going to work the way I want them to.
Right. Yeah. There's no follow through without the feeling.
There's no follow through. There's also, you talked about alignment. There's no alignment.
There's no alignment. Right. It's
if
part of the
if you're focused on some thought that you want to come out a certain way, way X,
right,
and your feeling is tied to Z, X and Z are like two letters apart. I mean, fairly close in the alphabet, but that's about it.
It's not quite there. Right. No. And, and that actually reminds me of things like affirmations. And different things like that, right? Or even prayer. And it's a lot of people, they're told, just say this affirmation every day and, things will get better. But they're missing the emotional part. Emotion, I heard it from someone, I can't remember where I heard it from, but the first time I heard it, but, energy in motion, right?
Right.
And our deepest beliefs, our deepest memories, we'll say, is usually our most emotional times in our lives. Okay. And so why is that important? Because when we do things like affirmations and we set a vision, we try to have faith about something, and we don't have that emotion, we don't have that driving force to nail it in. I almost see it like a nail driving it through, and when our emotions are weak about it, it doesn't drive anything through. It's just words, and if our emotions are even going in the wrong direction, I'm sitting here saying, oh, I'm going to be rich. I'm rich. But all I can really feel is just the weight of poverty. Then I'm really just calling more poverty because I feel like I'm not in alignment, because I'm not. My emotions don't line up with my words. And so I feel like I'm lying to myself. So therefore, I'm telling myself whatever I'm saying is BS. It's bad because I have wrong emotion associated with it, But people try to skip over that and just say, okay, just ignore all the emotions. Like, you can't. You have to get that in alignment too. You got to pick that. One exercise that I found helpful, I think I got it from guy Maxwell Maltz, Psycho-Cybernetics book. Right, and he talks a lot about visualization and things like that. And he talks about envisioning something that does make you happy, that you do feel a lot of positive emotion about, right? Focusing on that. And then when you have that emotional buildup, then switch the thought to the thing that you want to associate it with. Yep. That helps a lot of people.
And it isn't a placebo. It doesn't solve everything.
No, it's not about fixing everything just with that. Nope. There's tons of action you have to take, and we haven't really even talked about that.
Yeah, that's true.
But you have to start. You have to start there, because if you don't believe in what you're doing, there's no way you're going to put 100% in it. And there's a spiritual energy that goes with excellence that brings your results faster than when you're just going through the motions. There's been tons of things I've just gone through the motions, and there've been things that I've really wanted to see it and I believed in it. And the things that I gave my all to were the things that worked out the best. And so it's very hard to put your heart into something that you don't believe in.
I would say almost impossible.
Yeah. So 1 point, I think 327. No,
damn rule book! I'm telling you, that thing
it's in there. I think it's in there.
can't seem to burn the thing. I mean,
There's a rule against that. That's why.
that's why. That's the problem. Ah.
Oh no.
Okay, so we got all this great theory. You're right, we haven't gotten to the action step yet. And I
Yes.
know how I want us
Yeah.
to get there because theory is great. We talk about theory a lot here on the show. It's a
Right.
great way to get our daily dose of happy, to get in that
Yeah.
feeling place. But at some point, the rubber has to meet the road.
Mm-hmm.
So there are lots of different things I could point to that are going on in the world today. There's an election
Yeah.
coming up. There's all kinds of
Yeah.
new stuff going on. There's economic crisis. There's racial tensions. But the one thing that I want to point to today, because you mentioned it earlier, is COVID.
Yeah.
And people are dealing with COVID in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you can see it through news stories. You can see it through conversations with people. I mean, I had a conversation with a woman today. COVID was the last thing on her mind. You know why?
Yeah.
Because her husband of 59 years had died in May,
Yeah.
not
damn.
from COVID,
Right.
from liver disease.
Liver
You know,
disease.
COVID was the last thing on her mind.
Right.
Mhm.
You know, on the other hand, I saw somebody over in the store who I had seen before. He was one of those people, you know, you see that person every once in a while. Oh yeah, hi, how you doing?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, it was that kind of person. And a few months ago, he was one of the people who was huddled over, scared, looking at everybody. Now he was feeling more open, and it's like, oh look, you're looking good. You look like you're
Yeah.
doing good. Yeah, I'm
Took the
doing
gloves
good.
off.
You know, so he had his own way of dealing with what was going on.
Right.
So let's talk about how people in general have been handling COVID. Some of them have been doing it well, some have not been doing it well, and how it ties into what we've been talking about here, because really that's where it all starts, right? It starts in the mind.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So COVID, there's been a whole spectrum of responses to COVID. And, you know, the biggest response that we see usually is fear. At least that's the one that's pointed out the most, right?
Yeah.
And we have to be careful with that, because fear just kind of spreads throughout your whole life.
Oh yeah.
It's just one of those things that moves around like a virus. No pun intended.
Oh, I thought that was perfect myself.
Oh, that was great.
So it spreads like, you know, like a virus. But the thing is that people, they get their information from social media, they get the information from the news, little blips and blurps and blah blah blah, and so they just go on high alert and say, all right, where's my astronaut suit? I got to get that because I'm gonna step out the house. You know, I have a clean room between my front door and my my gate, just so I can. And but like, even like, granted, yes, we don't, between us three, we don't know every single detail about it, right?
Mhm.
But at the same time, there's stuff like on the CDC website, and it's like, just go and read it and see how they're saying that this thing is spread, and see, you know, what the mask was essentially for, and all those things. And there's a lot of people taking 20 different steps when you don't really need to do that. But again, it's coming from so much fear of being sick. There's so much fear of death, and that's the only thing that people are thinking about. And it affects everything that you do, and it affects your future, your vision for the future, right? Because again, people are not going to do things when right now they feel like they need to be in a state of fear. You know, it affects your health, because it causes chemical things to happen when you're in fear, when you're in a high stress level, you know, so that's causing sickness by itself, you know. And then not only that, like, just going out and spending time with people, right? People that you know are healthy. People are scared to do that, and we need that because we're social beings, you know. So then that plays a part. You know, people are more depressed, people are more lonely, people are scared to go out and get even what they need from the market, and some people are just taking way too much. But but
some people have toilet paper for the next 5 years.
Right,
For real.
exactly. But this whole COVID thing is, I think it's honestly revealing to people whether they think for themselves or don't. Okay, so we talk about controlling your thoughts, we talk about controlling your emotions, and when you're not in control, every little thing that they talk about, you're just going to react, and your reaction is going to be fear. And you're going to look at every single person not as another human being, but as a threat, you know. they could potentially sick. They're potentially sick, and they could get me sick and make me die or make my family die. So, like, everybody out here is an enemy, you know. And how does that affect the whole energy of everything right now, of being around people, of life in general? Um, People just can be more tired, right? Because all the stress, the fear, and everything
Mm-hmm.
else.
Sure.
People are unfocused. We already kind of talked about that. People are not going to set goals because they feel like pretty much the future is questionable.
Mm-hmm.
Why bother? You know, people are just stopping life essentially right now, and I think that's the biggest effect that we see from a lot of people. Life is just quarantine, and that's it. That's the only way to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Which is not life.
No.
No,
You
it's
know,
not.
this is not life. You know, my kids, well, I have one daughter in school. She's going to they're starting with remote, and then they're going to reassess later. I've been seeing a lot of people from different states and stuff that they're going back to school, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you know, I think that will help loosen people up a little bit more,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to take that next step and say, okay, like, maybe we're gonna be all right. Maybe the whole Earth is not gonna implode today. And so,
Oh my God.
you're right. But it's I think the biggest effects is people just, one, we're skipping the social life, and that's so important to us as people. Um, and secondly, just filling ourselves, our minds, our emotions, and everything with fear, um, is just stopping a lot of things that could be happening in people's lives right now. I think it's the biggest effect of COVID.
Okay. Well, this actually may tie in then, because Josie, in our live stream, we live stream this as we record this, and she's one of our regular live streamers. She's got a question for you.
Yeah.
She says, in your opinion, I did it again. I can't pronounce words right now. Naphtali, excuse
Yeah.
me. How do you balance between discipline and force when it comes to achieving goals?
Okay. That's a good question.
That is a good
Um,
question.
so when I was starting to change what I was doing, the discipline was really just getting myself to realize a kind of mind over matter thing, right? Saying, like, you're going to listen to me, body. Like, I'm in charge now, and you know you're gonna listen to me. That's why it's like, I'll take cold showers. I wake up early, work out, blah blah, and I hate cold showers. But so some of that is just getting yourself to realize, once you set in action, you write that down. This is what you're doing. So I would build the discipline part up with that, as far as just getting your mindset ready. But also, I would look at the habits that you're trying to build to self-discipline, and really look at where, how is that truly aiming towards your goal? Okay. Because sometimes we build a lot of self-discipline and do a lot of things, but they're not really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And also too, the so what was it? I'm sorry, the second half of the question, the force.
It was achieving. How do you achieve the balance between discipline and force when it comes to achieving goals?
Okay. So you get the discipline, and you really look at what habits that you have to have, that are, you know, the 80-20 rule, right? That 20% that's going to get you 80% of your results. And you make sure you're focusing on that discipline. You may have other things that you need to be disciplined on, but you need to know what are your top things
Mm-hmm.
that you have to get done. There may just be one or two things that you have to get done every day to make progress towards your goals, because life happens, and you're not going to be able to get everything checked off every single day, right? And so once you're focused on that, then you can start tracking. And once you're tracking what you're doing, then you can start creating more balance. Okay. Because a lot of times, you know, we create that self-discipline sometimes, but then we get distracted with life. We have everything happening around us. We have our up and our down emotional days, okay, because we're human. But once you start tracking, then you can actually start shifting a bit and saying, okay, I'm doing this, but it's not working. But why not? Because of X, Y, and Z. All right. So next week, I'm going to shift my self-discipline. So I'm going to shift what I'm doing, because every time I do this, my mom calls me, or this happens, or blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to just shift that a little bit. I'm going to go at it again this week. The biggest way, the most powerful way to get that balance, honestly, is to start tracking what you're doing, tracking the results that you're getting, because then at that point you can change it, you can shift it, and still be headed towards your goal.
So how do you use that tracking information? I mean, you're keeping track. Okay, I did this today. I did that, and it came to this result. And I didn't do my affirmation, but I did this. And okay, so you got this tracking. You got all this log that you kept. How do you use it at that point?
Yeah. So, all right. So let's set a goal. The big goal is always like weight loss, right?
Okay.
So you have your habits is I'm going to work out every morning, right? I'm going to eat better. I'm going to eat, a protein bar or whatever for breakfast. And, I'm going to go walking at night and stuff like that. Right. So you're keeping track of that. And it's like, okay, I'm not waking up at 5 o'clock to work out. I missed 3 workouts this morning. I mean, not this morning, obviously. This week.
Boy, that's one schedule, I tell you.
Whew, this is why I get so much done.
I'm exhausted thinking about it.
So I missed 3 workouts this week, right? And okay, I kept my protein bar, and I was able to walk, but I wasn't able to walk for half an hour, and I had to cut it down to 15 minutes. Okay, so why did I miss 3 workouts this week? Okay, because I was staying up too late, because I just hit the snooze button, because whatever, right? Okay, so if 5 o'clock is not going to work, I either need to shift my time and say, okay, I'm going to do that midday, okay, or it's easier for me to walk in the morning than do a workout, because I'm really not motivated to go do a workout in the morning, right? But I can walk. Then I can change that, and then check my consistency and see how I'm doing. But I could have 12 things on this list, but also I always want to point out that there should be 1 or 2 things that are your most important thing. Mm-hmm. Okay. Because sometimes when we start on this journey, and so I had this program that I made, right, called Power Goals. Okay. And part of figuring out what you're going to do, building the habits of figuring out what everything is looking at what are going to be your obstacles before you even start your goal. Okay. So again, sticking with the working out thing, sticking with the losing weight. If I start going to the gym for an hour a day, that's going to affect my wife. And then if my wife starts complaining, guess what? I'm going to stop going to the gym. Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm going to prepare for that now. Okay. Work out some kind of deal with her now. And so I can make sure I'm canceling out those obstacles before I even start going towards my goal. Okay. And that's another thing too, that will minimize that. Mm-hmm. And, but really, again, going back to the tracking thing, that's really what you want to do. If you're, again, setting up times, you're setting up certain habits, and then you have to look at, okay, why did I miss it 3-4 times? Okay. If it's a high priority one, and then say, do I need to shift the time? Do I need to stop driving by Wendy's? Because every time I drive by Wendy's, I got to get a spicy chicken sandwich with cheese. And then maybe I need to go a different way to work.
Take a long way.
Right. If I need to stop watching cooking shows.
Well, if you don't stop, it's actually the short way, when you think about it.
Right. If I need to stop watching cooking shows, because every time I watch cooking shows, I get hungry and I go grab a snack. It's finding those little things in there that are sabotaging you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's track and then identify your barriers and then pivot.
Yeah, exactly. But if you don't track your habits, right? If you're being successful, mm-hmm. then you won't find those little things. Mm-hmm. Because you're just going to be at the end of the week, like, I did good today. I did good this week. I did good this month. Yeah, I think so. And you're just going to keep going, you know.
Or worse, you're going to say, I didn't accomplish anything because I didn't track anything, so I don't know of anything I did.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And so how can you shift when you have no information?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. You can only improve what you track.
Mm-hmm. As usual, we have ripped through this hour. We're actually overtime, which is not unusual for us at all. But
Nah.
before we go, I want to make sure that we take care of a little business. First and foremost, you mentioned that you do master classes. I imagine you have other stuff too. What can you give us like a little overview of your stuff and tell
Yeah.
people who are interested in perhaps working with you or learning more about you, or maybe just sending you a question, how they can reach out to you?
Right. So the best way to reach me right now is probably through Facebook at Naphtali Anderson. You can find me on there. I have Naphtali D. Anderson page on there, but you can just contact me directly. And some things that I'm actually working on right now is I'm putting together an online school, if you will. So I have a lot of courses that, like the Power Goals course that I was talking about, the course where you deal with breaking down your beliefs and your fears and how to do that. I have a course on strategic thinking and focus and things like that. So I'm building that up. That's going to be open later this month. If anybody's interested in registering for that early, which will be a very discounted price, you can definitely reach me through Facebook and I'll get you on that list. And as far as the master classes, I'm doing some workshops later this year, which is almost end of the year. So I have one for November, which will be a 4-hour workshop online with everything going on. But it'll be a 4-hour workshop just talking about breaking barriers. And we're going to talk about clarity. We're going to dig into purpose. We're going to dig into, those beliefs. We're going to dig into what habits that you need to start building. And so it's very hands-on, which is why it's so long. And again, you get to personally interact with me, ask questions and different things like that. So those are pretty powerful. Those are awesome.
Okay, very good. We'll try to include a link to the Facebook page just so people can get there easily. We'll put that in the description.
Awesome.
And I want to remind people before they go that we do have the LOA Today app. Everything is now going through the app. That is the way to listen to the podcast. It's the way to get the extras that we build in there. Dan Mangana's Money Game and Cindy Chavez's Lovely Magician's Guide to Soulmate Success, and a number of other things that's coming in there too. Oh, Linda Armstrong with her High Vibe Living course, that's now in there. There's going to be a meditation video coming from David Strickle of the stream. So a bunch of stuff in there right now. You got to make sure you have that app if you haven't already downloaded it. But more importantly, we got to make sure we're getting it into other people's hands. That's one of the reasons why we created the app. So make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend, as our friend Alyx likes to style it. I think it's a great way of saying it. And just help people. That's what you're doing. You're helping people get that daily dose of happy. Now, there is one other thing that we have been totally remiss in doing, and it's for one very specific reason, and that's because Alyx hasn't been here. He has not been here to tell people how to subscribe to the YouTube page. Alyx, we haven't done that since you've been gone.
You haven't done it?
You see, you're totally missed here. See how everything just starts to fall apart just because you're not around.
Wow. I feel special.
You got to get us back on track.
How do you find us on track?
How do they subscribe?
You go to YouTube, search LOA Today podcast videos, and once you see our smiling faces, click, what is it, down below? Yeah, down below to the red subscribe button. It's been a while. Click down below to the red subscribe button. Next to the red subscribe button, there's a little silver bell. Click that silver bell so you will always be notified when we're live.
See, like a week from now, she'll be in perfect shape on that.
Yeah.
I'll be fine tomorrow.
Well, Naphtali, this has been wonderful. I love your take on things. I love your story. I wish we had more than an hour because this I have like 25 more questions I want to ask.
Well, he's invited to come back anytime.
We can do
definitely.
that. Yeah,
I'd love to
have him come back. But very good stuff. So thank you for spending that hour with us. We appreciate it. Any one last thought you want to leave listeners with?
I think the last thought that I would say is that your purpose powers your progress. Okay. So when you can connect with your purpose, something inside of you that's going to be powerful, that is powerful, that why, then your progress, your progression, your performance is going to be so much more powerful. If you feel like you're missing that oomph in life, you have to dig into yourself and find that clarity on the why you want to do anything. And then you can find that inner energy to power through and do an exceptional performance. So
find that driving force.
Yeah.
That's within. That's cool stuff. All right.
I like it.
I like it too. And I like the fact
Thank
that our friend Alyx is back. He's smiling again. He's the one with the happy smiling faces that we've all been
Yeah,
missing.
I'm just glad I don't have to do this show while I'm jogging because I can't. I get to sit still for an hour, so it's great.
I will never ask you to do that. I promise.
Oh, thank God.
Only afterward. But Naphtali, thank you very much. Good luck with the master class coming up in November.
Mhm.
And thank you also for sharing with people what you're doing with the school that you're creating. So that's all good stuff. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. And
Keep
thanks
doing
for having me, guys. I definitely appreciate it.
Oh, we're glad to have you.
Anytime.
Thank you, live streamers. Thank you especially to our podcast listeners as well. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.